Hi everyone, Brian Harold Taylor here. I'm an illustrator and animator, and I'm currently creating WILDERNORTH, an animated fantasy adventure storytelling project here on YouTube. For a more in-depth look, you can also check out my Patreon, where I'll be sharing early access to my YouTube videos and behind-the-scenes content. Link in this video's description. Today, I thought I'd make a quick video to show my process for 2D animation and a little behind-the-scenes look at why I'm using Moho. Just a little disclaimer, I'm not being paid by Moho to create this video. This is just for fun. Originally, I was going to create WILDERNORTH on my iPad, using apps like ToonSquid, Calipeg, and Procreate Dreams. I figured if I used a symbol library and a very limited animation style, but with strong character designs, I might be able to make it work. I really love animating on my iPad, and ToonSquid especially is pretty amazing. Sadly though, the results didn't quite work for me. Traditional frame-by-frame animation still just takes way too long, even with a very limited minimal animation style. I needed a more efficient solution. So, back to the desktop computer I went. So why Moho? Well, I've used Adobe Animate in productions. I've used Toon Boom Harmony in productions. And after using both, I can confidently say that for a solo animator, nothing beats Moho. Of course, that's just my opinion. Results may vary. Moho is like a toolbox or a Swiss Army knife for 2D animators. It gives you a bunch of tools to make animation more efficient and more fun. There is a big emphasis on rigging and bones within the software, that's true, but it's hardly the only way to animate. I myself am not a big rigging guy. Sure, I've done it. I've rigged characters in Animate. I've rigged characters in Harmony. Heck, I've even rigged feature film quality rigs for 3D animated characters in Maya and XSI using set-driven keys, controllers, and scripting language a time or two. But thankfully, those days are hopefully well behind me, and I'd like to believe I'm a stronger person now for having had to survive all that. These days, I've tried to lean into what I most enjoy doing, which is drawing and storytelling. I'd like to use as little rigging as possible for any animation efforts now. So, with that said, what I like to do is animate as much as I can in Moho with point animation. This is a feature that's unique to Moho and, in my opinion, is worth the price of the software alone. Again, that's just my opinion. With point animation, it's like having your very own in-between assistant. I don't think some animators realize how powerful that is. All I have to do is set up my keyframes, give the software a little direction here and there, and it does the rest of it for me. It's a big time saver. I've animated entire shots with point animation, maybe with some switch layers thrown in there as well. Which, by the way, switch layers, you can easily replicate the workflow of Adobe Animate, where you create a library of swappable character elements that can all be tweened. You can do that with switch layers. Anyway, I've done some pretty advanced character animation with this method. Initially, I felt that bones and overly rigged characters were too restrictive for my taste. I wanted an animation workflow that was more flexible and required less setup. However, once I understood how bones in Moho worked a bit better, I saw their potential. I still keep any rigging I do to a minimum, but I now see the benefit of using the best tool for the job. Bones are essentially a way to move groups of points, or other bones, around in a predetermined way that's repeatable. That's it. So then, here's just a bit of my current workflow. First, I'll storyboard out the scene I want to animate with timing, sound effects, and music. Then, I bring that into Moho. I might do a super rough animation pass, either in Moho or some other frame-by-frame animation program, to figure out the movement. Sometimes I don't though, and I'll just go straight into building my character for each shot based on the camera angle. In this layout stage, I focus on strong composition, character posing, and whatever additional elements or swappable body parts I might need. I can reuse body parts or heads from previous shots if they work for the current one. Sometimes the movement will be simple enough that I can just animate it with point animation or layer animation only. Other times I'll use some bones to move things around a bit. I don't worry too much about getting everything deforming perfectly. You can always do a point animation pass on things to fix any weird bone issues at the end. And if you do want to get fancy, it usually isn't too much work to set up some sort of corrective bone actions or a smart bone dial if needed. Finally, if it isn't too time consuming, I might even throw in some frame by frame animation for effects or parts of a character if the scene calls for it. Because yes, Moho does frame by frame animation as well, and it isn't too shabby at it. The drawing capabilities in Moho have greatly improved, especially with version 14. At the end of the day, all that matters is getting each shot done as dynamically yet as efficiently as possible. What I love about this is that I don't have to keep reusing a crazy advanced rig with a huge amount of smart bone controllers or actions or corrective morphs or whatever. Instead, I just focus on drawing and what I need for each shot or scene, and making these shots look as good as possible and as much like frame by frame animation as possible. So there you go. Again, all of this is just my current workflow, which is subject to change as new information or experience dictates. But I hope this helps someone out there who may be wondering about making the switch to Moho, either from Adobe Animate, Toon Boom Harmony, or whatever. I do think it's worth a look for any animator or animation enthusiast that's ever dreamed of making their own little films. Hope this helps, and feel free to subscribe if animation, comics, or storytelling is your thing, because I have a lot more to say on these subjects. And if you do want to see more WILDERNORTH, be sure to check out my Patreon on patreon.com/Brian Harold Taylor. Okay, see ya.